the history of music, the last 50 years or so or more, displayed right in front of them.
They've got a good selection of guitar players there. So I better get a good night's rest before I walk in on those guys.
La historia de la guitarra eléctrica es más bien una historia americana, la historia de un instrumento surgido de la necesidad. Cuando los bluesmen rurales emigraron a las ciudades y necesitaban que se les oyera en sus nuevos ambientes urbanos. Pero una vez amplificada, la guitarra acústica se convirtió en un instrumento totalmente nuevo.
Les, they just won't fit, that's all.
Why don't we get your mind off of it? Let's do How High the Moon.
Les Paul, un músico de jazz muy conocido en los años 40 y 50, fue uno de los primeros en ver que la acústica eléctrica era el principio de un nuevo mundo. Les, que ahora ya tiene 76 años, toca cada semana en el Club Fat Tuesdays de Nueva York.
On an acoustical instrument, one note would resonate much louder than the next note, one would sustain longer than the next one, so it was not consistent. And so the first thing I want to do is get something that was reliable, that you could make two of them, make them sound alike. It happened in 1941 when I told my friends I was going to go over to the Epiphone factory and make a 4x4 log. And here it is right here. And I would just string it up and try it. And I tried it and I said, this is the answer to all the answers to this thing. My backyard in California was full of a lot of talented people. One of them being Leo Fender. And old Leo was looking at this thing and he said, what are you going to do with that log? And I said, well, I'm trying to convince Gibson. Leo said, you know, I'm thinking of making one of these things. Would you like to go with me on it? And I said, no, I'll stick with Gibson. I'll convince him sooner or later.
Gibson didn't take solid body guitar very seriously. Late in the 40s, when Fender introduced the Telecaster, which was the first production solid body, after Fender started to sell quite a few, Gibson began to pay closer attention. At that time, they went and found Les Paul again. Les had a solid body design that Gibson had rejected, saying he'd never produce anything like that, it's just a plank. At that point, they said, let's go find this man with a broomstick again.
So the Les Paul guitar was born. And I said, I want that action way down low, and I want this, I want that, and boy, and it was tough for Gibson. So a lot of gray hairs up at Gibson.
Until you will, until I know.
It worked, Les.
When Leo Fender started making the solid body Fender guitar, it came out really big. And that solid body guitar started a whole new world. I mean, it had a great sound, and great effects, and then Les Paul came out with his guitars, his solid body guitars, which created a whole different sound, different market. The guitar became the largest selling item we had in the store. Where before it used to be trumpets and trombones and saxophones and bass fiddles, and all the electric basses and solid body guitars.
Durante los años anteriores a la llegada del cuerpo sólido, la guitarra eléctrica estaba demostrando ser un instrumento virtuoso en las manos de sus primeros genios. Charlie Christian, el guitarrista de Benny Goodman, al principio de los 40, le estaba dando a la guitarra una voz que iba a transformar su estatus de solo ritmo a una posición solista.
Charlie Christian's success caused really an immeasurable change in that there were people, they heard Charlie Christian, and they say that when they heard him, they lost their minds. And I think they don't mean it, maybe literally, but they became obsessed with that sound. Previously, maybe they liked the guitar, maybe they were playing acoustic guitar, but hearing that electric sound changed their lives, got them to pick up electric guitars or put pickups on their acoustic instruments and start wailing.
When I first heard his recordings, I knew he was something special because nobody else was playing like that. But his tone was also excellent. And I noticed that after that, nobody else ever really came up to that sound that he had. I think guitar players are still trying to get the sound that he had. And I don't know how he got that sound, to tell you the truth.
Charlie Christian fue para el jazz, lo que T-Bone Walker fue para el blues, inspirándose en el jazz y en el country para crear su rico y propio sonido. Estos estilos tan diversos estimularon a músicos más jóvenes, como B.B. King, que los mezclaba y les añadía su propio sabor. Años más tarde, B.B. King sigue llevando la antorcha del blues e inspirando a nuevas generaciones de músicos.
T-Bone Walker would play. He would bend the strings like that. Charlie Christian had a way of playing that we hear it in many people, but he would use diminished chords in a lot of cases playing tunes which would sound similar to this. Like that. I like that. I still can't do it. But that's what he was known for doing. Another one was Django Reinhardt. Now Django was a French gypsy, they told me, and he would come like, and you'd hear his guitar seemed to sing. And then, like that. When I'm playing now, the B.B. King that everybody knows, I can't hardly help but
popularizers of the electric blues. When the rural bluesmen went up to Chicago, and it was following the whole black migration in the States, of people looking for work in the North after they left the farms, B.B. King epitomized the idea of the black electric guitarist in the blues band, which is that's all a rock and roll band is. It's an amplified version of the rural blues.
A mitad de los años 50, estos blues rurales se habían convertido en algo nuevo y excitante, con la adición de los ritmos llevaderos y los solos cortos y pegadizos. Estos proporcionarían la banda sonora para una revolución social y los cimientos para una enorme nueva industria.
Well, I'll tell you one little secret. I played the guitar as if I had a drum. I wanted to be a drummer, but I couldn't get this hand to leave this one alone. You know, if this one tried to do this, I play drums a little bit, but I'm limited. And so I use the guitar, the same licks that I put on the guitar, I would like to do as a drummer. could have invented that scratching thing, you know what I'm saying? See, like when you...
Riding along in my automobile.
Mientras Buddy Free suministraba el ritmo y Chuck Berry los licks en la guitarra, el acceso a este lucrativo público blanco, hambriento de este nuevo sonido, no era fácil.
At that time, we had that kind of a mess here in America. You know, okay, can you find a white dude that can do it? And you don't have to do it as good, just do some of it and share this cat back over here. And that's what was happening, you know.
Well, he said you was high that class. Well, that was the one. Yeah, he said you was high class. Well, that was the one. Yeah, you did.
Elvis Presley put the guitar in the popular consciousness. Elvis Presley standing around on TV, shaking his hips and banging the guitar once every 32 bars or so. It was a real potent image because first of all, if a guy's just standing there singing, then sometimes he can look a little corny, let's say. If he's even holding the guitar, it looks like he's part of the band, like he's doing something. And being part of the band was always real potent in rock and roll.
Every group comes into the store. There's not one famous musician, except for Elvis Presley, who never walked into the store. We had to deliver stuff to him at the Waldorf once. He needed a bunch of things, but I guess he was very shy.
El rock and roll era ya la música de la juventud y la guitarra era a la vez su símbolo y su medio de expresión. A pesar de que fue América la que creó las bases de esta revolución guitarrística, fue Inglaterra, a comienzos de los 60, la que la convirtió en un fenómeno.
Love, love me do. You know I love you. I'll always be true. So please, love me do.
The Beatles put together some of the Elvis Presley idea with the idea of groups like the Shadows, the guitar group, and just as with Elvis, the iconography became so incredibly potent. The Beatles meant so much to everybody that then everybody had to have guitars.
I liked the guitar because, you know, it was just, basically, it was a cool instrument. I mean, everybody in my neighborhood got guitars when the Beatles came out, and so, you know, I thought it would suit. But then after that, I mean, I found it was a pretty nice way of expressing yourself after I got into the players that I decided to listen to.
Several things made the guitar popular. One, I would think that it was easy to carry around with you. Two, with the amplification, it made a lot of noise. People liked a lot of noise. Three, they saw all these famous musicians making so much money playing the guitar while they didn't see it playing the saxophone on the trumpet, because the big bands were really gone by then.
Love to see you strut up and down the floor when you're talking to me. That baby talk, I like it like that. How, how. Whoa,
A medida que los Beatles definían el lado popular de la guitarra, la gran mayoría del público británico utilizaba las raíces americanas de la música, mediante gente como John Lee Hooker. De todo esto surgió el blues británico.
that. Baby, talk.
Grupos como The Yappers, los Rolling Stones y Cream reexportaron entonces su versión del blues a los Estados Unidos.
All of the bands then were just doing that. They were trying to recreate, the American blues thing. But I think the difference between us and them was that we wanted to make our own statement. Wanted to express our own thing, write our own music. In fact, it worked because then the Americans heard that and they were interested in that. And I remember playing with Muddy Waters and Otis Spann, and they were playing our versions of their tunes. So, it worked, I guess.
England and the English somehow see the treasures of the United States a little more clearly than the people in the United States do themselves. The bluesmen experienced a revival of their careers in England, not here. Here they became passé, in a sense, because their natural audience, the black community, moved past them.
When I first went to England, I read a piece in the paper where Eric Clapton had said that it was his first visit to America, and one of the things that he enjoyed most was meeting B.B. King. That was a great thing for me, because a lot of the people that knew he was a superstar and been listening to him, they came out to see me, to see what was he talking about. So that was a great big lift for me.
Clapton related to the blues in a way that is mysterious, because he was a middle-class English kid, and yet seems to have been very common. For some reason that we'll find out when we get to heaven, Eric Clapton and Keith Richards and John Mayall and a lot of other young English kids found something in common with this rural black American music from the southern plantations that was 20 years out of time when they heard it.
Esta música británica dirigida por la guitarra supuso una gran alza para Gibson y para Fender, que dominaron el mercado de las guitarras durante la siguiente década. Mientras tanto, la América negra había dejado atrás el blues para adoptar la música soul. Para la música soul, la guitarra no era un icono, pero sí era un importante instrumento proveedor de color y fraseo.
If there's anything to be said about the stacked sound, it really was music with licks in it. We like to call them money licks, A song that becomes a real national hit record is identifiable within its working parts, whatever it is. But a funny little thing that happened with me in writing a song, I came up with an intro for a song with Wilson Pickett that went like this. I'm gonna wait till the midnight hour, which there again, when you start, by the time you get there, everybody in the audience knows what you're going to play. I was working with Eddie Floyd one night, and we wrote a pretty neat little song called Knock on Wood. We were having trouble, getting an intro for it. And I sat there, and all of a sudden it hit me, I don't know why it hit me, to play Midnight Hour intro backwards, which went. I don't wanna example of how something so simple can become so identifiable, and I always refer to it as follow the dots. And if you know anything about guitar, it's marked with these fret markers called dots, and they're on the top side as well. And you just follow the dots and you can't get into trouble, you know.
La musica folk fue la última en resistir el atractivo de la guitarra eléctrica, hasta que Roger McGuinn y The Byrds demostraron lo que se podía hacer con una canción de Dylan y una guitarra eléctrica de 12 cuerdas.
I was interested in getting an electric 12-string, so I took a pickup and put it in my acoustic 12-string, but it didn't quite have the sound that I was looking for. And around 1965, the Beatles came out, 64, 65, and I was really interested in the sound that they were getting. So I went to see George Harrison playing a Rickenbacker in A Hard Day's Night, and that's what gave me the idea for the Rickenbacker 12. At the time I heard the Beatles, I was working as a songwriter in the Brill Building, which is a famous Tin Pan Alley in New York City. And my job was to listen to the radio and emulate the songs that I heard. And when the Beatles came out, I was doing that. So naturally, I jumped right into that kind of music and started mixing folk songs that I'd known before with the Beatles beat. Things like, what later came out is Turn, Turn, Turn. To everything, turn, turn, turn. Here is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven.
Roger McGuinn very much came out of folk music. He was in the Limelighters. He was in some traditional groups. McGuinn came out of that. What was really important was that, unlike a lot of folk music snobs, McGuinn heard the Beatles and said, "This is the greatest. I got to start a band too." But he brought a lot of folk music into it with him. Most obviously the 12-string guitar, which has in itself become a whole kind of subgenre. But McGuinn put things together in a new way, and the fact that then it would work with Bob Dylan's lyrics as a Mr. Tambourine Man suddenly opened up a world of possibilities.
I used a lot of my banjo technique on the guitar. I started doing this rolling thing. And that would be the substructure of the song. It would be in the song. And then I'd put lead lines over it, you know, like on 8 Miles Highway. Which was influenced by John Coltrane's saxophone work that I was very interested in. So I was trying to get the valves opening and closing with the 12-string. You know.
If you want to get real small about it, there is a whole line that you can follow from the 60s to the present that came out of the Byrds. And then, you know, in the bigger sense, the Byrds become one more color that goes in and out of everything else. And a lot of people, you know, Springsteen or Jackson Browne or any number of people will have their one Byrdsy song.
Mientras todo el mundo parecía estar escuchando rock and roll en sus varios disfraces, los músicos mismos se inspiraban no solo en los virtuosos del blues, sino también en los del jazz, como John Coltrane y Wes Montgomery.
Wes Montgomery was doing something different than any other guitar player. There was no one like Wes Montgomery. And he was influencing every guitar player on earth that heard him. You would automatically want to play octaves when you heard him play. That was his great contribution, the one that stuck out the most. But that had nothing to do with his musicianship. His musicianship was second to none. He would be compared to John Coltrane on saxophone. That's how innovative he was on his instrument and how his mastery of the instrument was equal to that.
Well, I got exposed to Wes Montgomery through my mom. She used to play a lot of jazz when I was growing up. And when I was really getting into guitar, I noticed some of these records being played, you know, and I really latched on to the fact that this sound that he had with the octaves, playing the octaves, you know. He used to play sort of like this with his thumb, you know. Get a real nice sound. Really beautiful sound. I guess, although I can't say that I really knew a good note from a bad note back then, it did sound really beautiful to me.
A finales de los 60, George Benson siguió los pasos de Montgomery y se convirtió en uno de los principales guitarristas de jazz.
George established himself, like he was, as a great jazz player, as a great jazz virtuoso. And what he did was, where Wes played octaves, George would put another note in the middle. And I don't know if I can do this, like, that's like Wes. And then so George was, put that extra note in there, or, and then a little Errol Garner.
George Benson used to drive us crazy. Came in here and really picked the guitars up and started playing without anybody telling him. I used to kick him out. One day Wes Montgomery walked into the store and said, "That kid plays really good, Henry. He's really a good guitarist." I said, "You really think so, Wes?" He's great. I used to let him play for that.
Mientras los guitarristas de jazz no ponían demasiada atención en lo que sus precoces vástagos del rock and roll estaban haciendo, un guitarrista de rock and roll estaba él solo cambiando nuestra percepción del instrumento. Jimi Hendrix fue el primer guitarrista desde Charlie Christian que redefinió la guitarra mediante su dominio y control técnico. Creó un lenguaje guitarrístico totalmente nuevo.
Hendrix just invented the world as far as guitarists go. You can't get past that. He was the biggest thing and he'll always be the biggest thing. It isn't a matter of technique. You couldn't have the sort of technique that people have, and Hendrix had to open the door.
When you listen to what he's doing on the guitar, it's amazing. It's almost like contemporary music in a way. You listen to some contemporary classical music. I mean, it's far out. He was really something.
I don't think there were a lot of people that were doing this kind of sliding and using it for playing melodies. And Jimmy had. That sounds like Wes Montgomery, doesn't it? So the idea of, I'm sure he heard, wow, that's beautiful. You can play octaves and you can play a melody and it sounds bigger than if you went, which is what a lot of surf guitar was doing, very twangy.
His style first shocked me, and I would have been playing guitar for 3 years by the time I heard the first notes of Purple Haze. And that scared the hell out of me at that time.
When Hendrix started doing that stuff, he sounded as avant-garde and as crazy as John Coltrane or something. By the time Hendrix was done, then the most extreme sort of both electronic and technical guitar innovations were accepted. And in that way, guitar, even in rock and roll, the guitar mutated way ahead of the rest of the instruments. If you went to a rock concert now, and the drummer started playing something really avant-garde, the audience would get restless. If the bass or the piano started playing something truly avant-garde, the audience would get restless. They'd go out for popcorn. But the guitarist could do the craziest thing in the world, and people are going to stand up and cheer.
That I was going to try to be a guitar player as much as I could, and that was probably the biggest guitar moment, because it was sort of mixed with confusion and sadness, but at the same time, sort of a feeling within me that I was making some sort of a bold, striking move.
The almost mutant offspring of Hendrix, the Satrianis and the Baies, and all these guys were great, great players, and Van Halen was one of them. I think I'll owe it to him for allowing the acceleration of that process.
Jimi Hendrix was a customer before he went to England. Worked with a group called Curtis Knight. Curtis Knight's been a customer, still comes in here all the time. He brought Hendrix in, said he's a good